Hello and welcome to the Segal Salami Show, the virtual cafe, and I'm Segal Salami. I can see some new faces here. Who have I got?
Good morning, or I guess good afternoon for you. My name is Jim Mosquera. I'm located in St. Louis, Missouri, in the heartland of the United States. I'm an author of a couple of different series on the nonfiction side. It's called Escaping Oz, deals with financial, economic topics. On the fictional side, I have a protagonist by the name of Chandler Scott, who's part of a thriller series that features politics, economics, and cyber terror.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. Okay. And what would you like to have in the cafe?
I think a nice tall glass of iced tea.
Perfect. We've been having a heat wave here in London. I mean, I think we had like 2 or 3 days where it got to 30 degrees. So I think an iced tea is perfect. Normally I would have some pastry, but it's been so hot. It's that kind of heat where it just saps your energy and you almost feel like you're in a desert somewhere. So no pastries, but I've got Oreo biscuits. Would you like some?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, fabulous. Normally my little human would be here to help me out, but I've shipped her off somewhere to go play around and run around soon. But burn off some excess baby energy. So when she comes back home, she's just shattered and goes to bed so that I can get some rest because this heat is not even playing with anybody. But yeah, so give me a second, I'll get that ready for you. And who have I got here next?
Yeah, my name is Nathan Segal. I'm coming to you from Ensenada, Baja California, Mexico. And I've been working as a freelance writer for the last 19 years. My major beat has been technology, mostly computer graphics and photography, and publishing articles. Have been published over 1,000 times. I've written a number of books, again, on computer graphics and photography. Although in recent months I've switched into, well, my last book was about overcoming bullying, and that transitioned into the topic of post-traumatic stress. And what my main thing is right now is working with a group of coaches out of Australia. And we have techniques to help people recover from post-traumatic stress extremely fast. And the last couple of days, been working on a sales letter and what they call a video sales letter, quite literally done this morning. So we're just getting the word out about that. That's the main thing I'm doing right now.
Oh, cool. Have you written any books?
Yeah, 9 of them.
Oh, right. What are your books about?
Computer graphics and photography for the most part. And the last book is it's called Life After Bullying, and it's based on my experiences of being bullied throughout my life. And it's not so much about blaming anybody. What it is about is showing people how to deal with the problem, how to get away from these people, and more importantly, how to get help, how to get recovery. There's a lot of practical information there because the problem can be extremely insidious and have a tendency to follow you around. And part of what I talk about is how to get these people out of your life.
Yeah. That sounds interesting. So what would you like to drink in this hot sunny day in London?
Well, you're in London. I'm in Ensenada, so it's not anywhere nearly as hot. It's maybe 18 degrees, 17 degrees. I would just like more coffee. Nice refill.
So, and you said Mexico, so you're in Mexico, because again, my geography is really bad.
Yeah. I'm on the West Coast.
So I wasn't sure if I heard New Mexico or Mexico, because I know that there's New Mexico in America.
Yeah, no. I'm in the country of Mexico. New Mexico is a state. Not entirely sure where it is. I have a rough idea, but no, I'm in the country of Mexico. I'm 100 kilometers south of San Diego on the coast.
Interesting. Well, it seems like so you're the first guest from Mexico. I've had people from Singapore, Malaysia. Where else have I had people come from? Australia, lots of Americans. I think 1 or 2 Canadians. So you're the first Mexican or guest from Mexico. Well, thank you for coming over. So what would you like to do? Oh yes, you said coffee. And would you like some Oreo biscuits with your coffee? Because that's all I've got today.
Oh, I love Oreos. Sure, that'd be awesome.
Perfect. It's nice. I always think whenever I get the chance and I'm not too tired, I'd like to think I make a mean Oreo cake. Like Oreo is like the best thing since sliced bread. I think it's just the best thing.
I've had Oreo cheesecake, which is just outstanding.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Don't forget the Oreo
Yeah.
ice cream.
I've not had it.
Yeah, that too. Well, I mean, if you go to a Dairy Queen, of course, you could get Oreo cookies in a blizzard, I believe they call it. It's quite tasty, quite nice.
I think seeing Oreo ice creams in the supermarket, and I've been quite, one of those ones where you're like, I'm fighting temptation. I really, you want where you're like, you know what, I'm sure if I start, I probably would not stop. So I've literally been fighting it. But now it's, today has been cool. So maybe I might just give into that temptation and try the Oreo ice cream. Now you guys
Now,
have
now
said,
remember, you have to set a good example for your kids too, right?
yeah.
So you make sure that you have it when they're not around. Pretty
Yes,
easy.
yes, that's true. Because this heat wave, this little child of mine, she's been having an ice cream a day. And I can't really say no because when the temperature is 30 degrees and you touch her skin and it's burning and she's a winter baby, okay, fine, it's okay, you can have ice cream. And she pulls it on every single day. She has an ice cream. And some days she has 2 ice creams. It's like,
Wow.
yeah, sir, I think you're right. I will do it when she's not around. But be that as it may. So Jim, tell me about your book because I heard something about cyber terrorism, and that just sounds amazing on its own.
Well, the fictional series is under the protagonist Chandler Scott. The first novel is called 2020. The second novel is called Rebellion, and the third novel in the series is called Division. And one thing, if you look at each one of my book covers, you'll see the stars and stripes represented in some way. So that should be a clue that all of the books deal with things in the United States, mostly centered on politics, financial crisis, and cyber terror, things that are very, very prevalent in our society today. So one of the things I try to tell readers is that if you want a peek, if you will, into a potential path for the United States, read these books and how they lay out, and you'll see how as we were talking off the air earlier, that as a society we've kind of gotten away from supporting the foundation of at least how the United States was founded, which is supporting freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. And we've deviated more towards freedom from certain wants and needs that were not particularly articulated in the Constitution. So the books really kind of underline that theme of, is that something that we really want to do or continue doing? Because as we continue to do that, we've placed more and more pressure on governments to keep providing more and more. And of course, there's always financial responsibilities associated with that. So what happens with the protagonist, Chandler Scott, who's a journalist, he kind of progresses through his professional career, his love life, his mentorships that he has, and he gets further and further involved in, the political situation in the United States. And as you mentioned earlier, cyber terror, which of course is plaguing, not obviously just the United States, but all over the world, starts to have an impact, not just on, the election process, but in people's day-to-day lives. And you see that reflected very, very much in the second book, Rebellion. And as you have this authority encroaching on the citizens of the United States, you have people that start to push back from a secessionary perspective. And there's a really, really interesting character that I introduced in the second book, that he's what I call a cyber secessionist. So he's somebody that's causing mayhem, and you don't really see who he is. You just see kind of a representation and outline of who he is. But he talks about all of these themes of how technology is allowing people essentially to liberate themselves, to disintermediate government. And he's talking about really having a society that's separate of all that. And so there's a lot of, new concepts that get introduced throughout the course of the 3 novels.
See, now, as you were speaking, something was running through my mind, right? I remember a conversation that I was having with a guest, in the virtual cafe. And again, it's not just, with that person, but, I've had, several different conversations, right? And, when you speak to the powers, not the powers, but the people that are more knowledgeable, right? The coaches, the consultants, they would say that, people use their writing to show expertise, right? So, for instance, Nathan, who does IT, he might use his writing to show his expertise, in an IT field. And so when people use it, they now think, oh yes, he's quite, So when people, who write books, like yourself, which have a very strong theme based on what is currently going on in the world, do you think that in politics, not necessarily in the sense that they shouldn't have a personal opinion, because obviously their personal life is different to their author lives, right? And one lady that I do know, and I don't follow her very strongly or, quite a lot, occasionally she comes into my radar, and she's this Nigerian author, and she writes, quite, I've never read any of her books, sadly to say, but I think her books are quite intense from what I hear. And she, so from her books, the impression that I get is that she writes books that touches on feminism. And I've listened to some speeches that she's given, or rather to some interviews that she's given, where she talks about things from a feminist point of view. So do you think, authors should then use, that have that write, say, political thrillers like you, for instance? Do you think that they also have a role in politics? Do you feel? I mean, there's no right and wrong answer. I'm just trying to, just get a feel of what different people think about stuff. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I do. And as a matter of fact, I use my fictional writing and non-fictional writing as a platform for conveying information, let's say, to people about their political choices. And again, I try to be very, very subtle about it. But when you read the first book in the series, which is 2020 in the fictional series, you will be hopefully thrilled and entertained. But there's also some educational components that are provided as well. And that's been reflected in some of the reviews that I've gotten from the book, where people say, oh, I didn't realize that about money or gold or something like that. And so it's important to understand that as part of a theme. Yeah. But there's also some subtle, political messages that are transmitted through some of the characters in all of the novels. And again, it's really meant to inspire people to think and reflect. Because as we were talking off air, the political situation in the United States obviously got very murky in the 2016 election, and it only stands to continue to get even more so. But as citizens in the United States, we have a responsibility to elect our leaders at all levels. But we are deficient in many respects from understanding, what government can and can't do and what the costs associated with it. So I definitely convey a lot of information. Again, it's apolitical, but it's very intensive from the standpoint of making people think and just ask the right questions. And with my latest nonfiction book, if I could add, to try to engage in a very open-minded, middle-of-the-road discussion, because right now in the United States, we're suffering, from a lot of polarization, and we don't have that political middle. And that's one of the themes of my last nonfiction book, is to try to arrive at that political middle, to have, some cogent discussions about what needs to happen.
Interesting. So, Nathan, now if I remember correctly, and again, this is my excuse. I have baby brain, and apparently I can use baby brain as an excuse till my child turns 21, right? So you'll have to bear with me, right? So I think I heard you say that, you write, no, not write, you do something about post-traumatic stress, right?
Yep.
So, would you? I'm trying to think of how to put this now. As an author, and I know you're trying to do, and you did mention about this fantastic therapy. What was it you called it again? It was something linguistic.
Oh, it's neurolinguistic programming. That's yes. What we use. Yeah.
Yes. No, that's fine. And I will ask you again what it is, because like I said, I've got baby brain. But like, so when you use your writing, I strongly believe that it makes one, an expert. So would you ever where do you see any author, not just yourself? So it's not, I'm not asking, who you voted for or what your personal beliefs are, that's, not what here, we're just here, having a conversation. I'm trying to understand, like, would you also say that, as an author, or, or not just yourself personally, anyone as an author, would have a role in politics, no matter how minute it is, or do you think that all authors should stay away completely from? Because authors have a platform where people come to find out more information from them, learn something. People follow authors for different reasons. So do you think that, and especially you're doing something that I think is actually quite incredible, and so what do you think? Let me not try and put words into your mouth. What do you think?
Well, number one, I'm not going to even try to speak for other authors. That's not my place. I prefer to deal with just my own life rather than trying to say anything about how anyone else should behave. And as far as politics are concerned, in terms of my writing, it's never really been something I've spoken about. I mean, I've wound up interviewing people, and politics may have come into the conversation, but I'm having a hard time remembering any time when it actually has. The only way that politics seem to be coming into my life now is because of what I'm doing with post-traumatic stress. And that's simply to do with dealing with government agencies, getting funding, and so on. And we're just at the very beginning of that. And actually, what's been happening, ever since we teamed up with this marketer that we met a couple of days ago, he was basically telling me that my approach of contacting different organizations, and some of them are involved with politics, he basically said, stop doing that.
Oh, really?
And yeah, absolutely. But not because of political reasons. It's because of the marketing technique of cold calling, which is really, depending on who you talk to, not a good thing to do, not very effective. And what he was encouraging us to do was concentrate our marketing in internet marketing way. In other words, direct marketing techniques, but on the internet. So writing sales letters, doing video sales letters, marketing using Facebook ads, and other ad techniques of reaching our audience that way. And to not worry so much about trying to get things happening with organizations. I mean, I'm still going to do some of that, and politics will definitely come into it. I can't tell you how much. I have no idea. I mean, it's something, that part of it is, well, it's just outside of my knowledge base. There's only one way to find out, and that's to do it.
Yes,
And
yes.
I mean, where it's good, where I see it coming into play actually is just to do with, are you guys certified? Is there a certification that we can draw on? And I can see that getting political, but as to what degree, not the slightest clue.
Well, I guess, see, and I guess why, I sort of put the question is, because I've seen lots of things, because obviously we've had, elections, recently, and I've seen, here, I mean, most of the people that sort of turn up on my timelines, other than my friends, they're mostly in the UK, and everyone seems to have, an opinion about, what's going on, and then you find people, exactly, we've had this fault in one of the buildings in London, and where there was this massive fire that ended up killing loads of people, and so you then found that a lot of people then ended up speaking up and giving their opinions about things, and it got me thinking though that not me personally, that as an author, when there was, say, a disaster or something happened, should authors then use their platform to speak out and give an opinion, or just give people choices to say, well, this is option one and this is option two, maybe go and think about it, just the way, Jim does, with his books, where, he gives, I can't say as best as he's done, where it's education, but he then gives people, sort of things to think about. So it's just something that, crossed my mind, where I'm like, oh, okay, so when there was that fire, should authors, come up and say, as this author, living in London, this is what I think, this is what the government has, should have done, this with the failings, they need to be held accountable, or, should authors just, sort of stay away? And it was just sort of stuff that was just randomly going on through my head, that I was just sort of
I think one of the things that you see, particularly, and I'll throw authors in the realm of artists in general, you'll see a lot of musicians that can be very, very political. I think what you're seeing, though, is they tend to move towards the polls, excuse me. And so that tends to kind of intensify the polarization that you see, not just in the United States and other parts of the world, especially. But you mentioned the fire that happened in London. Obviously, your country right now is being subjected to a lot of terror attacks, and there's obviously a lot of politics wrapped around that. And
Yeah.
Even more so now when your prime minister called for the snap election and it didn't go exactly the way that she thought. And no doubt that probably 2 or 3 months ago, the polls showed that she would have an easy time winning, and the conservatives would have an easy time winning. But look at what's happened, obviously, since that time. Terrorism has taken on a different complexion, right, with a lot of low-level terror attacks. But yeah, I do think there's a platform there for it. But what I try to do, I'm very, very conscious of this, is not to try to arrive at either of the polls, but to provide that more of that centralized information so people can kind of draw their own conclusions. But in order to do that, you have to have people ask the right questions, and that's something that I think is sorely missing.
Yes, no, that's quite true. Okay, well, it's been quite interesting, having both of you and listening to what you think about politics. And like I said, it's something that's sort of quite current going on in the UK at the moment. And so that was why it kind of came to my mind. What do you guys think? I mean, for you, Nathan, you do a lot of post-traumatic stress things. Would you ever say, put random thoughts on your Twitter feed and say, oh, you know what, this is what the government can be doing to help out, or this is what the government should be doing to help out? Would you ever do such a thing, or would you just stay away completely?
I tend to stay away from it for the most part, because what I keep seeing is people expecting help in different ways, and they're not getting it, and they keep it. Like, I've encountered a number of people to do with what we're doing who are demanding that we do our work for absolutely nothing, no monetary compensation at all. A couple of, and regardless of politics, I mean, we have to make a living. We can't keep the lights on if nobody's going to pay us.
Yes.
And this has come up repeatedly. There was this one woman in Canada who was demanding that we give her everything we have for nothing, no advertising allowed, no money allowed, and we basically told her to get lost. But the one thing that I noticed a lot about her, she'd been hurt, she's got all this stuff, she's angry at the government. My opinion, this is a wrong approach. If you really want to get something happening, then you'd be far better off to learn marketing techniques to raise funds and get donations or do whatever else you need to do, irrespective of the government, and to stop expecting the government to save you.
Yes.
That's just my sense of it. And that's why in the last couple of days, talking with this marketing fellow that we're working with, is to change our approach away from that and to learn really good marketing techniques and really good ways of talking to the people who need what we have. Because one of the huge problems that we've got is there are tons of people who need what we've got. Most of them, from what I can tell, are veterans. And the other thing that has shocked me quite a bit is most of them seem to be as poor as church mice. And so we have no way of helping them because, again, like I said, we can't do it for free. There's got to be funding from somewhere. And so rather than trying to get funding from government or going through all these different hoops, we're concentrating on direct marketing techniques and using an entirely different approach where we don't have to worry about that. And from what I've seen of direct marketing over the years, if you know what you're doing, you have a really good message, you know how to convey it in a way that persuades people where they look at your whatever it is you're offering, and you say it in a way that it resonates with them, then that's where you're going to get the people from. That's my take on
it. Fabulous. Well, it's getting to that point where I think I need a drink. No, not an alcoholic drink. I need to go and get something nice and cool to, quench the fire in my throat. Because, when it's really nice and warm, you need something every now and then. And I know I haven't given you guys your drinks. We'll have to do that next time. So before I kick you off so that I can get my drink, wisdom. No rush, anyone.
Yes.
So, yeah, sorry, there was a dropout there.
Yeah, you dropped out.
I said before I kick you out of the of my cafe and go and get a drink for myself, and I know I haven't gotten you guys your drinks yet. You'll have to we'll have to do that next time. Any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I'd like to encourage people to visit my website, jimmosquera.com, JIMMOSQUERA.com, if you want to have a very unique reading experience in the fictional thriller realm, and something that will resonate with you very, very strongly, based on current events that we talked about earlier, politics, financial crisis, and cyber terror. I think it'll be an enjoyable read for you.
Fabulous. And how do they? Are you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm also on Twitter at The Sentinel Man, TheSentinelMan.
Fabulous. And Nathan, any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, well, for people to learn about what's going on from my end, I mean, my website is nathansegal.org. So the last name is spelled Segal. And so that's mostly a repository for my writing, copywriting, freelance writing, articles, books, that kind of thing. If you want to learn about the PTSD side of things, you would visit my Facebook group, which is, I'm trying to think, facebook.com/groups/freedom from PTSD. So that would get you to the group, and you can join it, be a part of the conversation. And beyond that, there's the stuff on my YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I can't remember the code for it, but you would just need to do a search for it. And yeah, that's about all I can think of in that way.
Fabulous, fabulous. Oh, I just remembered something now. See, normally I don't really talk about what I'm doing, but I just thought, you know what, I'll do so today because it's nice and warm, and I think every now and then I'm allowed to talk about myself. So I'm organizing a virtual summit September. All the info is on my blog. So shagilolasalami.co.uk/blog. And basically it's a digital, so it's called Investing in Africa 2017 Virtual Summit, digital strategies. And basically it's for authorpreneurs, bloggerpreneurs, mompreneurs, any type of entrepreneur there is. Like I think this is the top 3 ones that come in my head. And basically, I mean, you guys are authors. It was the other day, well, not the other, I think about a few months ago, that I discovered that not everybody in the whole world, right, that has access to an internet can download books from Amazon. Did you guys know that?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Actually, I've been aware of it because of being in Mexico. There are definite limitations. The way that you would get around it, or at least the way I've done stuff like that, is to change the address on my account so that it's either a Canadian or a US address. Because when you're out of the country, you do run into those limitations, for sure.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that before. I always used to assume that anybody anywhere in the world can easily download an ebook off of Amazon. And it was only when I was having a conversation with someone that I realized that actually, no, you can't. Right? And so I was then thinking, oh my good Lord, authors are missing out on a huge, because everybody seems to think Amazon is the best way forward. I mean, Amazon, they're leading the way, right? And they're trying to sort of, push out everybody else, the way and doing, some things that some authors or, shop owners might think is questionable, but, that's not my opinion. Just, that's what, from having conversations with people, a lot of people.
Maybe you can take that on as a project for us to solve that problem.
Well, yes.
There are solutions, and there are 2 different things that I want to mention for authors to get their books out in a whole bunch of different channels, and not just Amazon. The number one that I had heard about is called Smashwords, where you take your books and you format them for that format. But I can tell you, having tried it multiple times, I couldn't get it right, no matter what I did, and I finally gave up. And I actually put a query on an author's forum a while ago about this, and somebody said, "Oh, why don't you try draft to digital?" So it's draft.
That's exactly the one that I would suggest. I have a bunch of books on there too.
Yeah. So for the URL, it's draft, and then the number 2, and then digital. And so I took my book and I put it on their service, and they were so helpful. and they solved a couple of problems for me in terms of getting it set up. And within a very short period of time, I think my book got distributed to about 9 different channels like Barnes and Noble and Kobo and iTunes and this and that. So it addresses a whole bunch of problems, and it makes life a lot simpler for the author. So in terms of your book being available in different parts of the world, that part I still don't know about, but at least your book is out there in so many different formats, and you're not restricted to Amazon only.
Oh yes, no, definitely. I mean, but the problem though is, with people who are based in Africa, I'm Nigerian, so you can imagine in Nigeria there are close to 200 million people. And so again, one of the things that I found, when I was sort of doing this sort of research, when I found out, I was then speaking to more people, most of those places, they can only purchase things in dollars, as opposed to in local currency. But that's a conversation that's neither here nor there today. So that was sort of what sort of got me thinking. I'm like, okay, well, you know what, as an author, and you're trying to target people who are say in America, or the usual places that we think that people would buy our books from. But if you ever wanted to reach a bigger audience, right? Well, how about trying to then work and target and promote your books and your services and all these things to people who are in Africa, for instance. And that's how, I then decided, to get this summit. And it's more not from an end user point of view, but it's more for, businessmen and women. And I think authors, apart from hobby authors, for authors who want to make a living from their books, then I think of them as businessmen and women. So I just thought, what? So I then got a group of, people who have done stuff where they promote their books or their services, not just in one local region. And they would then come and, give digital, they would give step-by-step strategies that they've used to, reach a bigger audience. And hopefully we will then be able to apply all these things that we will learn. And I'm hoping I will learn something from it, to then reach, this is potentially untapped. So I hope you will register and get a ticket for you and a friend, and come support this, listen to what these other guest speakers would have to say. But all the info is on my blog, so shakilolasalami.co.uk/blog.
Sounds interesting.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So that's my little plug for today.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you guys. And it's not every day I have 2 guys all to myself. Normally there's usually another woman, and it's one guy having 2 women to himself or more.
Well, hopefully we didn't overwhelm you with our good looks.
Yeah. Yes, anywho, let me go get my drink. And hopefully I might get to see you guys or chat with you guys again sometime soon.
Well, thanks a lot for having us on.
My pleasure. All right. Until next time. Okay then. Bye now.
Okay. Bye-bye.